time for another episode of Sudbury Politics, the show, featuring your hosts, Jeff McIntyre, Rachel Adrians, and Richard Eberhardt, bringing you analysis on the political news of the day from a Sudbury perspective. Donald Trump is out. Joe Biden is in. Far-right extremism is on the hot seat, and Derek Sloan and the Conservative Party have had a falling out. Let's talk about it. Thanks for joining us, Sudbury Politics, the show.
Welcome back to Sudbury Politics, the show. We have Rachel, Richard, and Jeff here. We're getting our New Year's episodes rolling again. So here we are, shooting the shit for you. So I wanted to talk today about an event that's been all over the news. Another name in the headlines that I would rather not see in the headlines. But nonetheless, here we are talking about Derek Sloan. So, of course, many months ago, as you know, we were on the show talking about some inappropriate comments he made about Theresa Tam. This time around, he decided, I guess, that it would be a brilliant idea to take a political donation from a neo-Nazi supporter group, what have you. So, on the positive, his party finally put their foot down, decided to make an example of him, and boot his butt out of the Conservative caucus today. So, yeah, what do you guys think about that?
I think it's a part of that is a sign of the Trump end and how much of a clusterfuck that was. And I think what we're going to see for the next little while is, can that Trumpian style of politics survive with the cult of personality of Trump at the daily helm of it and beating that drum? Because it's hard to know who's going to be this new leader of the crazy conspiracy. And it becomes difficult to manage the crazy conspiracy when you have different people saying different things. You kind of had Trump running all of the crazy, and then everybody else just kind of falling in line with, immigrants bad and all of the weird shit that came out of that. And I think in Canada, there's more than enough Canadians that are against that kind of concept of policy, that those conservatives that were in there are you're starting to see them get knocked off of Conservative Party, nationally, provincially. It is a bit of a bloodbath on the Conservative side over the last few years of politicians being cut out of their party, both ways on this kind of Trumpian conservatism. So I think O'Toole has an interesting path to walk right now of, how do you hold on to those people, but how do you expand your base? Because he doesn't have the votes. There's significant problems in Alberta with the Conservative Party right now, that the Conservatives were relying on a sweep in Alberta. That might not be possible right now. You've seen Yavneet Singh slide in there to try and get it. So to maintain Ontario Conservatives, the party needs to soften. To maintain Alberta Conservatives, the party needs to harden. I think the current strategy is soften to get Ontario, because there was no risk of losing a seat in Alberta. But with COVID and Kenny's disaster and horrible numbers, they might not be able to rely on that, because there might be a path for the NDP to pick up some seats in Alberta.
Well, I mean, this is a bad time for conservatism. It's not just the Conservative Party of Canada that's going through this. The Republicans are going through this. 46 was inaugurated earlier. Joe Biden is now the president, and there's a movement swinging away. The pendulum is swinging away from this extremism. Now, there's a few problems with what Erin O'Toole has done. He hasn't defined. He issued a statement. If you weren't watching, he issued a statement on a Sunday. Derek Sloan's donation from Paul Frum, who's a well-known neo-Nazi, was released to the public on Monday. Surprise! to everyone after seeing that lengthy condemnation of far-right extremism. But O'Toole is still not really, he's taken one action. And Jeff, you were talking about all these people that are, sort of at risk here. There's no indication that anyone else is at risk. Hey, Derek Sloan pushed the boundaries like a petulant child who was trying to find how far they could go before being disciplined. You know what? He was never disciplined. Like, they could have done a whole bunch of stuff to him. They could have given him a formal warning. They could have said, this is inappropriate and you can't do it anymore or you're going to be kicked out. And you know what? He did 6 or 7 things, a pattern of destructive behavior. But the thing is that he had the party gunning for him up until last week. And Jeff, you tie this to the sort of the failing Trump legacy down south, and I agree with that. I think that they're trying to extricate themselves as much as possible from a far right extremism. But the Conservative Party is a real identity problem right now. Who is their core voter? You're telling me that core voter isn't living in Hastings, Lennox, and Addington. They're not my dad's friends who are, 65, 70, 75-year-old snowmobilers who live 30, 40 kilometers north of Kingston. That's exactly who his core voters are. No matter what, they're very, very white, and they live all across the country. They live here in Ontario, and they just lost the seat in Lennox, Addington, Hastings, because they are going to lose that seat to the former Liberal incumbent. And where else is this going to go down? Who else is a far right extremist? Rachel, it's not just Derek Sloan.
But it's not just a matter of the we had Rod Phillips resign from the Ford cabinet over COVID stuff.
He wasn't far right, though.
He wasn't far right, no.
and a lot of the people in the UCP that were disciplined there weren't far right either, necessarily.
But there was another resignation from the Ford cabinet over a letter about masks.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember who it was, but I can't remember at the top of my mind.
Yeah, he's a guy from Northumberland or something like that.
Yeah, Randy Hillier was the first one out. He's still poking sticks at Doug Ford from the anti-mask side of the world. So the Conservative Party needs to decide, how hard do we chase these voters? How hard do we go after that side of the world, when for them to become government, that's not nearly enough. That voting populace in Canada will not get you an election. They need to get the 416 and a chunk of the 905 to be able to become a government. And they're not going to get there with those politics. So they need to find a way to moderate enough to get those people if Erin O'Toole wants to become prime minister.
Yeah.
There's no other path for the Conservatives.
So where do we draw the line? Who gets fired? Does Candice Bergen get fired, Rachel? She was wearing a Trump hat. She was wearing one of these fancy Trump hats you could only get if you donated them a whole bunch of money. That was a good story. That was on Liberal Twitter. You must have seen it.
I think we should fire every Trump supporter. No, but I don't
seriously,
know.
like where does it go? They still trade with the Rebel. Is the Rebel far right extremism? I would say that it is, but then again, I'm extremely biased against far right extremists.
Yeah.
Rachel, where does the Conservative Party? How does the Conservative Party sustain this message to people that it's actually serious about this?
Well, they need to continue to take action. I feel like if people in their party or supporters are going to act like that, I mean, I think Derek Sloan's rebuttal today was pretty, pathetic in saying that Erin O'Toole is just trying to, get me and like all of us social conservatives out. And I have this huge block of this pro-life committee and pro-life supporters and blah, blah, blah. Like, that issue aside, like, those are some social issues, but then when you bring in like potential violence and the racism and that we've seen in the States, then it becomes a bigger issue. So your question about kind of what the Conservative Party can do, it's a tough one. I think Erin O'Toole, he's the leader. He's got to establish himself. Like you said, it's hard when you throw places like Alberta in the mix, where that's a little bit unique. They're trying to get votes there. I don't know.
Well, I'll tell you what, I don't know if you noticed this, but what Derek Sloan said to his supporters said, nobody quit. Do not quit your membership. People are saying, quit your memberships, don't do that. People are saying, stop your money, don't do that. No, don't do that. Instead, we're going to take the party back. We're going to don't leave. In fact, go bring your friends into the party. Go bring your crazy ass, lunatic left, right wing, nut bar friends, and bring them in and help take over this party. Instead of going to the Bernier party, that's scary. What can O'Toole do, Jeff? He can't fire all these members. He can't just eliminate them.
So here's the problem the Conservatives have and O'Toole has. They're in a bad marriage of social conservatives and progressive conservatives. They have been since 80. And they've had several divorces over those years. They're on the verge of one in Alberta right now. And one side of the party has a horrible drinking buddy in the US that they hang out with every once in a while that gives them even worse ideas. And when they come back, they do more damage to this bad marriage. It's not as easy as just saying, how do you get this all under one roof? There's genuine dislike within the party for segments, right? When you talk to people, there's people on the progressive side that really dislike the social conservative side of the Conservative Party, to the point that every once in a while they're like, screw it, let's start a new party. The social conservatives tend to be the ones that walk and do that and say, we're going to go over here and do our own thing. And they're at risk of that again. And the progressive side of the party needs to ask themselves, how long are we going to stay in this bad relationship? Or do we try and eat the lunch of the liberals on the other side and let this group become smaller and smaller and smaller?
The only thing I want to take issue with there, Jeff, Derek Sloan wants to make this about social conservatism.
Yeah.
Social conservatism and far-right extremism are not the same thing. You can believe strongly in the right, what they call it, right to life. I call it anti-choice, right? You can somehow believe in conversion therapy, but it doesn't mean you're going to violently overthrow your legislature. Do you know what I mean? Like, and the anti-maskers and the anti-vaxxers, the people that Sloan was appealing to, and he wants to make them out to be evangelical Christians with strong social conservative beliefs, that is not who we're talking about here. We are talking about an element within the Conservative Party that is far more extreme than that, and that Erin O'Toole is still stuck with.
I agree. I think it's and this is why I say it's the bad drinking buddy scenario, right? I don't think the vast majority of social conservatives are conspiracy theorists. But I do think the vast majority of the conspiracy theorists in the Conservative Party right now belong to that social wing that is trying to exploit. I think the exploitation of that group it is on that social conservative side of things. They're using things like race and tying that to Sharia law and all of these different things to create these massive conspiracies as to why the party does what it does, or why climate change is an issue, or why abortion and all of these different things, right? pre-Trump and pre this kind of craziness, Jason Kenney was actually the guy that really built up, Jason Kenney and a couple other conservatives really built up a strong base of immigrants in the Conservative Party. They were a reliable voting bloc for the Conservatives for almost all of Stephen Harper's tenure, because they were socially conservative. They were the folks that were against abortions, that, you know, didn't like the idea of gay marriage and didn't like the idea of children growing up without a mother and a father and all of these things. And that family unit, whether you were Muslim or whether you were Christian, Jewish, all of those groups agreed on that piece. And they did a really good job of selling it. And then they went down, a chunk of them went down this ugly path and lost the ability to get that vote.
Thanks so much for tuning in. Now, share your thoughts. Go to our Facebook page, facebook.com/SudburyPolitics. Let us know what you thought about the episode and share it with your friends so they can share their thoughts too. We're so glad you joined us, and we hope you tune in again for Sudbury Politics, the show.